The Sour Hour may contain some seriously funkified content. The Sour Hour is not for the faint of heart. So exercise some damn discretion, would you please? Sheesh. And now, here's the Sour Hour with Jay Goodwin.
Brewing Networks. I'm your host. I said networks, I think. I'm your host. Jay.
The Beer Network Military.
That's Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hi.
We're at the Brewing Network Studios in downtown Concord. Bevo's in the house, too.
Hi,
there she
Beav.
is. Oh, she's back.
It's been a while. It's nice to see you, Beav.
Yeah.
Poor girl. Thanks a lot, you
Top-notch
weirdo.
content. You're hearing more laughs in the background, not because we're funnier, but it's because my staff is in the house.
Hey, it's the Rare Barrel crew. Give yourselves a hand, boys.
We'll get to them in just a second. They've got lots of beers. They came here nice and early, so hopefully they'll be ready to chat because they've already had 3 beers. Two beers? 3 beers? Two. 1.5. All right. So, yeah, we do have the Rare Barrel crew on tonight's show. Those who can make it today, we're real thankful, so we can get to some sour beer questions. We'll taste some Rare Barrel beers and just give some updates on what's been going on at the brewery. Let's see. No, we're not doing phones. I really need to update this.
Yeah.
Join. Are we doing chat?
I think you wrote it in 2014 and basically haven't changed it since.
For sure. Chat? Yeah?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Email us some feedback or your questions, Scott at thebrewingnetwork.com, Jay at thebrewingnetwork.com.
Do we still do email? Email?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like the one way we communicate.
Oh, sweet.
Watch us. We're doing that right now. Bevo's working hard on that. Thebrewingnetwork.com/TV. You can listen live on the Brewing Network app. Just search B on mobile. Please subscribe and leave feedback on Apple Podcasts or wherever you can find. Are we on the other things now? That we're doing the
Stitcher
new thing?
and stuff. Yeah.
Stitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Spotify?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Maybe. Just Google it.
Bing it, yeah.
Bing it. And we do have a fresh review to read. Review of the week.
This one is super short. It's
Just real quick for the confused staffers without headphones in the room. That
did
doesn't
they not
play,
get to
right?
hear that? Oh,
Right.
they didn't get to hear
Yeah,
it.
there's
Hold on, we got to do
a little
it again.
jingle we
Yeah.
just did. Don't worry, that's the only thing.
Review of the week. Review of the week.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's a short one. It is titled Way Better Than the Session, 5 stars. It's from Sour D100. All he says is a must listen, and then he's got the little cheers emoji.
Cool.
Boom. That
Thanks.
was it. That was our review of the week from Way Better Than the Session. Thanks, Way Better Than the Session.
And
we
that
appreciate
was-
it. Yeah, that was.
Review of the week.
Yeah.
All right.
Good times.
What else, Scott? I think that's, let's see, last show we did a Q&A show, so go check that out. What else is new?
Well, the Brewing Network Studios headquarters just celebrated its 5th anniversary a couple of days ago. That was awesome. Good times. 5 years is like the sort of what everyone tells you is the benchmark for, okay, you might actually have something like that's, feasible here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've crossed that threshold officially, with sales plummeting, of course, but we did cross that threshold. And so we had a fantastic collaboration with you fine peeps. HR Nightmare, I have a bottle of it in my hand, and the one I'm holding in my hand, the beer's awesome, by the way, is signed all over the label. Who is
That's
this
pretty
for?
cool.
Did somebody ask for this, or did we just we're just doing it?
Isn't that your stuff?
It's a lot of Brewing Network Studios headquarters staff that have signed this, and I'm assuming it's in here because they wanted you to sign it. Did you sign it?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, let's go. There's a Sharpie in front of you and everything.
Cool. Should we do?
Knock it out. Yeah,
right
Jay's
now.
going to sign the bottle on the air, and if you wouldn't mind,
Could you just have some silence for that?
Yeah, I heard that. That was good. That was good. Could you read the description? I found it very, very pleasant.
Blended by an army of friends after much discussion, arm wrestling, and profanity, HR Nightmare is an explosion of blackberry flavor with notes of lemon. This beer was fermented with a mixed culture Saison strain and blended with barrels of golden sour beer conditioned on blackberries. This celebratory blend showcases a high acid profile from
How does that spelled?
both fruit and base beer.
It was awesome. It
HR
really,
Nightmare.
it really came out great. The label looks awesome, and the beer's fantastic. And it was an honor to have a beer that came out this good made with you guys. So thanks for doing that for us.
Sure.
It was really cool.
Probably did about 1% of that.
Thank you guys, all of you guys. Yes,
All these guys
I'm
really
addressing
did
it to you all for sure.
Same topic. Yeah, we made Scott's wedding blend this past weekend.
Came
which,
in and
again,
packaged
I did,
it.
Yeah, I did almost none of the work. These guys really did everything, setup and breakdown. So that was fun. But Danica came in, and Scott and I bottled the beer.
It was awesome, and I kept getting asked like, how'd it come out? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't try it.
Yeah, I had to add the yeast. I tried the beer at 8, and I was like, this is good. Asked them to come in at 10, so I added the yeast and sugar. I was like, you guys can try it now, but I mean, you guys know how the beer kind of tastes after adding fresh yeast and sugar. It's like, it needs some more time now.
And that was also a huge honor to be able to do that with you, and the favors we're going to be able to give to people. I'm super proud of that. I can't wait to see what it not only tastes like in a few months, but what it tastes like in a few years, as it is built to age.
Yeah.
And we had a kind of a snafu on the bottling line, which is kind of funny. I've never worked a bottling line before, but Jay's like, yeah, it'll be super easy. I'm on the taking the things off the line and throwing them into the cage, pitching. There you go. And Jay's feeding the bottles into the, what is there a word for that? That seems like pitching too.
That's pitching.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're all pitching.
No, you're catching.
Okay. It's like my personal life. And at a certain point, the part where the sort of conveyor belt connects to the part where the bottles are coming off, all of a sudden it popped off. It separated, and then like a bunch of bottles fell on the ground. We were like, whoa, whoa! So you hit the red button, you shut it down, and it turned out.
Didn't hit the red button, by the way. I just push stop.
I'm painting a picture here,
There is a red button, though. That would have been a pain in the ass to read it.
So it turned out like a zip tie, a very professional zip tied setup, holding the thing together had broken apart. And you're
Which
like,
I had never seen come off.
You're like, whoa! And you've been operating this bottling line for years, right?
Me personally, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, I've never seen this before. It's really weird. I can't believe it broke. So you proceed to then redo the zip ties. We connect it together. You hit the green button. I don't know. You fire the thing. You fire the thing back up. Immediately pops off again. You're like, what? You've never seen it, and it happened twice immediately. Isn't that crazy? Never happened before. Happens 2 times. It seems weird.
I'll tell you guys off the air what it was.
What happened? Yeah,
it's not that interesting, but
but it was cool. And I did a little label illustration. I can't wait to see the final product. I'm super stoked.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So thanks again for that. That's just a huge honor. I really appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Yeah, that was fun. All right. What do you think? Should we tease out a question and then go to break and then come back and get some beers?
Well, yes, but can we do like a synopsis? I want to hear from you. I want to hear from like who everybody is, who's returning, who's new, and like what the latest from your guys' perspective is at the brewery.
Let's do
before
that.
we get to
Let's
questions.
do a quick intro,
Yeah.
and then one thing you're excited that's going on. Maybe since the last time.
And you say quick. They're never quick. I make them quick in post, but they're never quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take your time.
Yeah.
So let's go around and introduce yourself, say what you do at the brewery, and just something you're excited about. Starting on my left.
My name is Greg. I am the newest member of both the tap room and the production side of the house.
Yeah. Hey, Greg.
So that being said, it's my first time here, and what an honor it is. And I'm excited about being here. I'm excited to be part of both the teams.
Welcome,
I
man.
don't know a whole lot about the whole process. I'm hoping to learn everything that's entailed, and just excited to be here. Thanks.
We're happy to have you, dude.
Brandon, you're next.
Thank you.
In case you couldn't see that coming.
Yeah. Sorry. So my name's Brandon. I've been with the Rare Barrel for a year and a half. So this is the second time I'm here. What I'm excited about. Can I say this on air? Our brew house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Not hooked up yet, though.
Not hooked up, but may see in the near future. So really excited to see how that's gonna kind of grow us as a company and all the fun new things we can do with having control over our wort.
Did we talk about that on the last show? I can't remember. I don't think we did.
Might have mentioned.
Give a quick breakdown on what you scored.
We found a 15-barrel steam-fired system from a brewery in Northern California. I don't know if they want us to mention them, so I'll just say that.
Benny Chillers.
No. Yeah, it was a good score, and so we've been thinking about, getting our brew house set up for a while, and as Brandon mentioned, it might take us a little while to get it set up, but we kind of couldn't let the deal pass us by, essentially. It was for less than half than we budgeted for this equipment, but there's still a long way to go. So.
You got a plumb and electrical and whatnot?
Mm-hmm. But we're actively working on that part of it, and the nice part is we can still work with our work production partners to keep the brewery going. There's not a rush, except for we do want to get it set up, kind of just as soon as possible.
And this was not something it was something you always had in mind, but you were just waiting for the right sort of deal or setup, and it just took however long it took for it to come along, and this was the one.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. All right, next.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Rachel. I've been in production for a year as of this Friday, I think, or so.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the one.
Torn my soul apart. I'm now jaded and angry. No. Yeah, I'm excited to not have food poisoning this time. The sour hour's around, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing else is happening in my life.
Is that why you weren't here last time because you had food poisoning?
Yeah, and I was so new, I didn't know you could just text Tommy and be like, I'm sick, so I went to work to demonstrate that I was sick. And then he was like, what are you doing here?
Is that on? Press the on button. There you go. Boom.
I still don't believe her.
Yeah.
All right, it's on.
Yeah, we'll make that smooth in post.
One thing I did learn from my time, like in sales management in a different life way before Brewing Network or anything, was that everyone is lying about everything all the time. When they call in for work, they're always lying. I mean, maybe not in this set, but like in a sales, you've never no, Bevo hasn't. Yeah, you don't count, Bev. You're honest.
I have never called in sick and not actually been sick.
I believe that, but in like a telemarketing firm, which is what this was.
Should have called in sick today.
You are sick. You sound sick. She might not be lying, but in like the rest of the world and like the sort of like
No, I saw her that morning.
Jobs,
She was definitely lying.
Oh.
Miller? Yep.
My name is Miller.
Speak closer. Like, real close.
You can move the mic, too.
Can you do that again? I'm Miller. I do sales and marketing at the Rare Barrel. I'm a coordinator, not the main person. But, I mean, I don't know. It's been fun promoting the HR Nightmare beer and promoting all of our new stuff and cans and all that. Getting more people excited through social media and
Given that cans are a new thing for you guys, like give me your elevator pitch approach for how you've marketed it. Why are these two people so resistant? It's crazy.
She just thinks like right to left a lot.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, really. I just create the stuff, I guess. I don't even know if it's effective and people like the stuff that we're creating and producing, but I think it's cool, and I think everyone at the brewery likes it. And there's no, really strategy behind it, but other than creating fun, creative stuff.
You can tell Miller was prepared.
Yeah,
to be on
totally.
mic just now. No, she's doing a great job. If you've seen differences in our social media lately, especially, she's a big part of that. And I've gotten feedback just from people coming up, just like, dude, what? Someone new is doing your social media now. It's just like, yeah.
Are you the brains behind this, with Jay Badloos and the news broadcasts and that sort of stuff?
She's doing the KTRBs, the weekend
yeah,
updates.
Those are so good.
You might know her from Miller Does the Munchies. Miller Has the Munchies. Got the munchies. Miller and the Munchies.
No, but I saw that video, and that's when I was like, we need to do more stuff like this. That was great. The Jay Badloose and all that up in everyone's face. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, those are really good.
All right. Tommy, you helped me film those, but that's not what you normally do.
No. My name's Tommy. I'm the seller manager at the Rare Barrel. This is round 4 for me. I think the first time I was here, I was 2 days into being a production assistant or something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. What I'm most excited about is being in the middle of fruit season, which I'm sure everyone here loves to be a part of as well. But yeah, that's what I like a lot is fruit. So.
All right, and finally,
Yeah, I'm Rob.
You're up on that.
no, that's good.
I'm deep enough.
Good, yes. Are we doing the Aussie accent thing again? Is that what just happened?
Why did you bring that
You're gonna
back?
have to
It
edit
sounded
that.
like it. It triggered something in
Did
my
it?
mind. Yeah.
You missed that.
I'm Rob.
Did you get much, feedback from that?
I did.
liked
I
it?
got a long rambling email from the Aussie guy who sparked that whole thing. He was delighted by what he heard. I don't think anybody else was, but he certainly
No,
liked
I
it.
got feedback in Australia from that.
You did?
Yeah.
They're like, "What were you idiots doing?
My
Just
name's
talk beer."
Rob. I'm the head cellarman and quality coordinator. I've been at the Rare Barrel, just over a year and a half, and I guess we're coming up on 2 years towards October. But we're excited about our quality program and kind of what we're doing with that with our quality specialist who hasn't made it into the show yet. But John's been doing great work, and I've been working with him closely with the yeast. And one thing we're working on is a sour adaptation in the laboratory with our bottling yeast. So it's basically we're trying to genetically change this yeast to be adapted to sour pH. So right now we go through a tempering process and, introduce the yeast into sour pH for bottling, but we're actually trying to genetically change a yeast in the laboratory to account for that so we can just prop and go.
Now, is this something? This is the Dr. Matt Bachman procedure, right?
Sort of like
the
a
tempering part is
permanent solution to that.
Is Dr. Bachman working on anything similar, or is anybody else that you're aware of?
They could be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not sure.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing.
Seems cutting edge. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
Where are you at on it? Like, progress wise.
We're just growing it in this super acidic media and just like these extremes that we face because that's we're trying to protect the beer against the yeast against the beer for packaging at this time. So we're just essentially feeding it and growing it in these conditions, and the yeast will can genetically change itself over time. So we're many generations in at this point, so we're expecting to see something hopefully in its growth and its survivability.
Cool. Definitely one of the topics we'll dive into today. And with that, I think we should take a break.
Let's do it.
So we can pop some beers.
Indeed.
All right. With that, we'll be right back. What was that, guys? You all right? We'll be right back with the Rare Barrel on the Sour Hour.
Proof like moonshine. Playing yourself is risky. Electricity. I break it down mathematically. 99.9 is the percentage. Like give me chef like spinach. Tofu sandwich with cabbage. Reality's the root of the rhymes. Rockin' rhymes is my hobby. Shade who the damager, the sun toucher.
Hey, this is Chad from Crooked Stave, and you're listening to the Sour Power Hour on the Brewing Network. And if you didn't know, it's now called the Sour Power Hour. Did you like that? We might have to rename the show.
All right, we're back. Saying that more for the people in the studio. It's the Sour Hour. Got the Rare Barrel crew in the house. We're going to taste some beer, answer some questions, have some fun. So, first one we have open here is called Just for Funk, right?
Yes, Just for Funk.
And I'm going to nominate Tommy to talk about this beer first.
So Just for Funk is our golden sour beer aged with Feijoa? I don't really know how to pronounce it.
Spell it.
Feijoa.
Yeah, Feijoa.
Fucking nailed it, yeah. But it's a pretty unique fruit from Southern California. I think it came from South America initially, but
is it like pineapple guava? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, they call it a pineapple guava, but it's also super menthol-y as well. There's this weird like herbal characteristic to it. I don't know. Everyone has their own weird take on this particular beer, but
so I've never heard of this fruit or seen it in a beer. Have any of you?
I think there's a couple places in Southern California that may have used it. I know Celador has made a beer with it.
Okay.
But other than that, there aren't that many people that have used this, if I'm not mistaken.
Cellar Maker with Tired Hands did an IPA with one.
Okay. And you can you can smell that menthol-y, spearminty thing that it's got going on. Super interesting.
Yeah, this is basically a direct translation of the fruit. Like even the acid level, even the aroma. For some reason, this is like the most fruit character we've ever gotten from anything. But at the same time, I don't think we used that much for this particular project. Like most of our shit is in like the 4+ pounds per gallon range at this point. But this was not that high, but it still has the best expression.
So what do you guys think is the best way? Because I always think like, well, if I'm hearing this and I have a brewery and I'm like, well, I love making apricot sours as much as the next guy, but man, I want to make stuff with a fruit no one's ever heard of. What is the approach for, that?
Honestly, sourcing is the hardest part. Like the volumes that we need for our fruiting rates is kind of the most difficult thing we need to deal with. So that's probably the first hurdle to overcome. But honestly, if it tastes cool and unique, I think it draws people into it anyway. So as long as it tastes good, I think that's all that really matters.
I think so too. For homebrewers as well, going to kind of different type of grocery stores, like more international, slanted grocery stores will give you new fruits to use and try, and sourcing's a lot easier on a smaller scale. For us, it gets a little more difficult because we have to use so much. But yeah, as Tommy said, we didn't use that much of this fruit. Scott, you asked if we had ever seen this before. I'm pretty sure after we got this in that this tree was in my backyard growing up.
Is that right? Yeah. It's like it's almost like wintergreen, like a sweet mint. It's really wild.
Remember, so it looks like a green oval pod with like a little flower on it, and we used to just throw these at each other when we were kids.
Oh,
totally.
Is that really?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, no kidding.
I was like, oh my God. I asked my dad about it, and he was like, yeah, that's definitely what we had.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty unique and interesting. Even though this beer is called Just for Funk, I think most of the funk does come from the unique aspect of the fruit rather than the base beer.
Does it is this fruit acidic? Like, how does it taste on its own?
It's kind of oddly custardy, if anything. Like I think people eat this the same way that a lot of people eat kiwi, where they like cut it in half and scoop it out, kind of thing. So there's that weird like textural thing that you don't really get from the beer. But it smells like menthol, tastes like pineapple, and has a weird creamy texture to it. So it's not very appealing, obviously, on the radio. But if you try it, I'm sure you'll love it.
Cool.
Whoa.
Pretty weird, right?
Yeah, I don't know how even to describe it. It's strange. Yeah, it's wonderful and interesting.
All right, so let's do some questions, and I want to mention that all the questions on the show are brought to you by Dr. Lambic and his team at thesourbeerblog.com. Check out the articles on Sour Beer Blog for a great written resource devoted to teaching you how to brew and blend sour beer at home. And now the Sour Beer Blog crew is opening up a new brewery. In fact, it's open, and it's a tap room in central Pennsylvania. Check them out, Mellow Mink Brewing at mellowmink.com. And I think we have some of those beers to open at some point during the show as well, don't we, Scott?
Yeah, let's before we do the next Rare Barrel beer, you want to sneak that in there, maybe
Sure.
for the next one?
Yeah, that's no problem. Do
Okay.
you have a question? I have some questions here too that I pulled off of a post I did on Milk of the Phone.
I do have some, but yeah, throw one from your sheet there.
So anyone can jump in on this, especially you, Miller. Jason Mantello or Mantello asks, do you have any experience reusing fruit that you can share? Reusing fruit in our beer.
Reusing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. We repurpose a decent amount of fruit. We've kind of strayed away from it a tiny bit just because the second use fruit tends to not have obviously the sugar content that we're looking for from the fruit. All that really gets left behind is a lot of the bitterness, the tannins, the acid. So certain fruits like apricot recently, I think we were tasting, and it was fairly bitter, astringent, and unappealing. So I don't really know if we'd want to repurpose that as a second use fruit.
And how did you know it was that way because you tasted the spent fruit and then decided not to add beer, or you made a beer and then that beer was a little more astringent?
A little bit of both. I think we've done second use apricot before, and they just aren't quite as appealing the second time around. But most recently, we did just pull some fruit off the bottom of a conical and put it in our mouths, and was like,
You're welcome, Tommy.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. It wasn't the best thing I've had in my mouth. Yeah.
What is there a
follow-up question?
Is there a purpose other than just saving why would you second use?
If it tastes good, you know, I think with these fools in the back say a lot when they're dumping things. It's like, there goes the flavor, you know? Like, there's a lot of hops or fruit going down the drain, and it's just like, what, Rachel?
What?
Rachel hates flavor, so.
I do hate flavor.
Yeah. Why?
I'm the official flavor waster.
She throws a lot of fruit down the drain for sure, but I mean, for good purpose, it tastes like shit the second time around most often. So,
But like with the wet hops, we noticed after they were emptied, the barrels, they developed like a pininess that wasn't there originally. And so if we had second used that, it probably would have made it an interesting beer.
yeah, it definitely depends on the ingredient itself. I think stone fruit just has a little bit more punch with all the sugar. Really, maybe wet hops is something that we'll repurpose for a second time this year. We've done a lot of second use grape beers before.
And I brought one today. It's going to be Blurred SB, which is also dried hopped.
Now, is that something? Is that something where you when you do a second use, you add fresh also, or you're just only using the spent stuff?
Really, probably just only using the spent stuff. We have done combinations in the past, like years and years ago, which I think worked well. But yeah, it's just fainter. You got to make sure it isn't astringent. But yeah, go to your kind of taste threshold on that one would be our advice. It seems like. I have one more that's kind of on that topic. Actually, you know what? I'll just say that for when we open that bottle.
Okay.
So,
How about I'll go here from Jordan Folks. Could you guys talk about?
I'm just going to assign this answer to Brandon.
Okay,
just
yeah.
beforehand.
This is for Brandon from Jordan Folks. Could you, Brandon, please talk about strategies for dry hopping fruited sours?
That's what I was going to use.
Oh, is it? Are you serious?
Yeah.
I have a different document than you do. Or do you have the old one as well?
That's the old one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is
he
this
asked
my
it for a
question,
second
Jay?
time.
That was really the one you were going to ask?
Yeah.
Wow, there's like dozens of questions here. That's crazy.
All right,
Whoops.
cut that out.
Sorry. All right. Well, we can move on. I don't need
This
to do
question
that.
will be for Brandon.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I could answer that question.
No, we're going to wait till we have that beer out.
Okay.
And then you can answer that.
Okay.
You have another one on your sheet there?
Sure.
All right.
This one's for Brandon. Best route to take with brewery-related education. How do you educate yourself if you want to either get into brewing or you work at a brewery?
If you work at a brewery, personally myself, this started back about almost 3 years ago. I had worked at Trumer before the Rare Barrel, and there they offered they were part of what was called the Master Brewers of America Association, and I'm still a member of that. I find it very educational. If you sign up, talk with the owner of the brewery. Maybe they might be able to help fund the registration for it. It's about $150. It's all throughout America. There's different districts. So I'm part of the Northern California district, and they get together about twice a year. And once a year, they'll get together with the Southern California and do a NorCal, SoCal 2-day meeting. And there they bring in experts from hop farms to bigger breweries, and they cover all sorts of topics and about quality, hop utilization, wort production. But there's just a lot of helpful information through those talks, and if you can't attend the talks, just through the forums themselves. That's a great path. I know we kind of, at the Rare Barrel, kind of stand behind the Brewers Association a lot. That's another phenomenal organization for like small craft brewers. I personally haven't kind of spent a whole lot of time on that website, but I know here and there with certain questions, I'll pop on there and kind of check out the forums, and there's a lot of useful information. But through those organizations, you can also find further education, like scholarships and things like that, to do like brewing and malting science, to packaging, to engineering courses for up to like 2 weeks. And they cover a whole wide range of topics and go in depth with it. I also kind of...
Yeah, why don't you touch on your Yakima trip and like what you have going on?
When'd you go up to Yakima?
Not yet. We'll be in a couple weeks. So I've probably found out about this about like 4 years ago. This is the first year in which so Yakima Hop Union, they do kind of like I think this is a 4-day kind of course in which usually they separate commercial brewers from home brewers, and so every other year it's for commercial brewers. But this year, I think, is year 15 of them doing what they call the Hop and Brew School, and it's going to be both commercial and home brewers attending. So it doesn't matter if you're a home brewer or a commercial brewer, you can attend this. And it's about a 4-day or 5-day kind of school. And so it starts with the hop farm. They go through kind of the process of starting the farm to the actual production and processing of the hop, and you get to meet the farmers, kind of mingle with other brewers that are up there. It goes through hop selection. It's going to be a pretty fun time.
I just want to say, too, for a further dive and an audio form of what you're talking about, those guys are doing a show on the network. Hop and Brew School has been airing. What has it been, Beav? Like a few months now? 6 months? How long have they been doing that show? Maybe
yeah,
not
about
even
6 months.
6
And
months?
the Brewing Network will also be at Hop and Brew School recording and I believe streaming what's going on.
Right on.
And I went on that show one time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Vinny was on
And
the show, too.
Vinny Chiller's also guested?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
good
a fun
times.
time.
Yep.
So that was great. Good rundown, Brandon. Maybe Rob and Rachel, you guys could talk a little bit about your experience at UC Davis. You both can. Both of you each. Individually.
Sure, I'll start. Yeah. Yeah, great brewing programs. Way to get into the industry is, through education. And so, we've come through UC Davis, the Master Brewers program with Michael Lewis and Charlie Bamforth. I know Bamforth has stepped out, and I believe, now Lewis has as well.
I think Bamforth's there this year.
Is he there this year?
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone.
Is it like an every other year retirement kind of thing? or-
I think no one can fill his shoes, so it's hard
Right.
to find a replacement.
He's a unique personality, Dr.
Yeah.
Bamforth. He's been on the session many times.
Yep.
His first show must have been like 12 years ago. I think he was on in like, what,
I
2008?
think it was Garage Status.
Yeah. Bamforth is the man forth.
Danforth. Yeah, no, I mean those are top minds. Yeah, in brewing science, and so you're exposed to all of that. Engineering, brewery engineering, food science related things. And packaging, and they basically set you up to succeed within the industry wherever you may end up at what skill.
I know my pops always used to talk about the business school experience he had at UCLA being of moderate value, but the true value was like, the bulletin board outside the classroom and then his internship, and that led to his career. So of course the connections you make are huge too.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they're all about connections, and you're training to apply for a job in the industry and to get that job.
Yeah.
And so I mean, and we, they also set you up to train to sit the IBD exam. Very difficult, and it's changed a lot, but mostly it's preparing yourself to get a job in the industry.
For sure. That's the Institute of Brewing and Distilling.
Institute of Brewing and Distilling in London. Yeah, they're based in London. You sit the exams. You can sit all over the world. I think about 500 people sit the exams per year, and they send it out all over the world to be graded. Very difficult exam in malting and brewing science, packaging, and engineering. There's three modules.
Cool. Rachel, what was your experience?
Pretty much what Rob touched on. I think it's interesting moving from that program to a sour brewery, because that sort of breaks literally every rule that you learn not to do in that program.
Yeah, you guys did a good job.
And so it's very useful, especially with the connections and like thinking critically about the ingredients that you're using and process-wise. But also, I think learning to think as a brewer like on your own and not sort of sticking to these rules that they teach you is of value as well.
Mm-hmm.
So was there minimal like mixed fermentation education?
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of like anti-haze, sort of like old school brewing. And so, I know Banforth has like a lab through Anheuser-Busch. And so sort of keeping up with minimizing loss and sort of being as efficient as a brewer as you can, which I don't think is like across the board for every brewery. So.
Yeah, brewery education is important, but I think at the same time you need to mix it with practical experience, whether it's home brewing or at a professional brewery, because you can't it's not a one-stop shop out there essentially. Cool.
Let's do another question while we have Dr. Lambick's beer in our glass, since he's bringing us questions.
Yeah,
and we just poured this this wonderful. By the way, thanks, Dr. Lambick. He sent us these unannounced. We have the barrel-aged Estate Saison in our glasses now. It's really wonderful. Beer de coupage style blend of Chardonnay barrel-aged Farmhouse Saison and Cabernet barrel-aged Golden Sour, naturally carved and bottle conditioned, of course. And it's terrific. Boy. And the branding is great, too. I think these are the first, because he hand-bottled the first professional stuff he sent us.
Yeah,
I believe this is the first official release we have, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Estate
awesome.
Saison. That's pretty cool.
Looks great. So Dr. Lambick and Mellow Mink bring you this question from Thurston Darcy. Love the show, yada, yada. What are the effects of using small barrels for souring, i.e. like 20 to 100 liter? Is the surface area too large to have good results? Is the time frame you have to keep it in the barrel too short before spoilage occurs to gain good flavors, etc.? Tell Scott with one T I said hi. Hi.
Yeah. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
So from what I've heard about smaller barrels is one, you kind of get a typical more oak extraction or character out of the beer a little quicker, and they breathe a lot more than when you start sizing up.
Yep, I think that's right.
Yeah, I think with larger format stuff, you get a slower rate of evaporation, so your contact time with the oak is a little bit more consistent, I guess, over the course of years. So if you're going to be aging something in a smaller format thing, just don't expect it to be great for 4 to 5 years. It'll probably need to be moved a lot sooner.
Yep, and I think we did a whole show on this topic with James Shamus, if I recall
That's
correctly.
right, yeah. Good memory.
Small barrel aging, something like that. He did a whole presentation on it, so he came on and answered some questions on that. It's a question we get quite often. So, yeah, you just need to do a little research and know that your timeline might be quite different. One thing I'll just say that I might have said before is if you have the space for a normal-sized barrel, you might as well just do that. I know it's a lot of work to fill it as a home brewer, but small barrels can be like actually a lot more expensive than just a normal oak barrel, so because they're much rarer. Cool. What do you think? Break?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, let's get you a break. Let's get these guys all some more beer. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we have to induce the meltdown somehow.
We'll have to get back to Miller right after this. This is the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network.
The Phil Hendry Show.
Check it. Yo, 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 my name is RC and I come from the streets, chilling with a 40 in my yard.
Yeah.
Maxin', waxin', chicks say hopping on my junk. Coming out of county, hit the street, little homie come up to me, I hear 6 cows. Really no thing to me. I, straight out of Chatsworth. I, it's all good, Holmes. Straight out of Chatsworth. It's all good. Oh, no. Straight out of Chatsworth. Don't sweat me, freak. I, straight out of Chatsworth. Yeah, RMRC. You better watch it, homie, because I'm OG. You are wrong. Know what I'm saying? Yo, with my posse in the house. What? The people call me Mouse. Pops in caps in my head, and then I sport. I screwed it up. Yo, my posse's in the house. The people call me Mouse. Pop in caps in my head, and then I sport some wood. And you're chilling with a 40 in your yard. I pulled the trigger in my 9, drink a strawberry wine. Then I took a cap in the ass. Take a cap in my ass, and then I smoked some grass. And then I had to help my dad at the hardware store. Check it. I, straight out of Chatsworth. Yeah, I know it's all good, Rob. Know what I'm saying? Straight out of Chatsworth. It's all good. Oh, that's hot. Straight out of Chatsworth. Chilling in your yard with the 40. Check it out. Straight out of Chatsworth. Yeah, Yo. My name is RC. I may have a nut, but I can bring it. Oh, God. Cruising in my truck to find a chick. And then you sport some wood. I'm not a whore. She wanna hop on my junk. Check it out. I chilling on my butt because I just got one nut. Look out, little homie with a machine gun. What? Straight out of Chatsworth. Did you want to have a frosty one? Straight out of Chatsworth. Mom! I got chlamydia. Straight out of Chatsworth. Straight out of Chatsworth. Yeah, hanging with the OGs. Hanging with the OGs.
You came a long way from St. Louis. You climbed the ladder of success. I've seen the town and country cars that were parked out in front of your fancy address. You came a long way from St. Louis. You broke a lot of hearts between. I've seen a gang of gloomy guys who were doing all right till you came on the scene. You came here from the Middle West and certainly impressed the population hereabouts. But baby, I've got news for you. I'm from Missouri too, so naturally I got my doubts. You got 'em dropping by the wayside, a feeling I ain't gonna know. You came a long way from St. Louis, but baby, you still got a long way to go. Came here from the Middle West and certainly impressed the population hereabouts. But baby, I've got news for you. I'm from Missouri too, so naturally I got my doubts. You got 'em dropping by the wayside, a feeling I ain't gonna know. You came a long long way from St. Louis, but baby, you still got a long way to go. You haven't fooled me, you know. Still got a long way to go.
American eyes, American eyes. View the world from American eyes. Bury the past, rob us blind, and leave nothing behind. American eyes, American eyes. View the world from American eyes. Bury the past, rob us blind, and leave nothing
Hey, c'est Jean de la brasserie Cantillon. Vous écoutez The Sour Horror on Brewing Wet. One more time. Hey, c'est Jean de la brasserie Cantillon. Vous écoutez la Sour Horror on Brewing Network.
Rachel's old boss?
Wait, for what?
I interned at Cantillon.
Whoa. That's a humble brag.
Yeah. Just drag it out of her, though. So not that humble of a brag. Not really bragging.
Wow.
All right, we're back. Sour Hour. We have another rare barrel beer open here. One of my favorites, Flower to Flower. And for this beer, let's go to Greg to talk about it. Tell us how we made this one, Greg.
Who made it?
How did
pretty sure we did.
That's correct. All right.
All right, yeah. Just really drunk.
Moving along.
Yeah, so this beer, it's a white hopped with Chinook and Centennial, if I'm not mistaken.
Cascade.
Got it.
So just from the nose, I get a lot of really dank, nice wet hop character. I've yet to try it.
Here we go.
Good.
He's raising the glass to his lips.
Spot there.
Yeah. And now he has officially tried it.
That is delightful. Let me tell you.
It's very good.
So, yes, really nice tart finish, balanced with some hop bitterness as well. Really nice, like piney Northwest hop character. Super refreshing.
It doesn't have it's not obviously wet hops, at least not to my palate. Was that deliberate? Like, were you trying to?
It's entirely liquid.
Whoa.
Water is the essence of wetness.
And wetness is the essence of, what is it?
Water?
I don't know.
Now you're going to look up Zoolander
No,
stuff.
I'm not. I'm absolutely not.
Yeah. Tommy, tell us about where we got the hops from.
Sure, these hops came from Akiyama Hop Farm down in Aptos, Capitola. Sorry, Sam, I totally fucking forgot where you're from, but thank you for the hops. So we got I think 500 pounds each of wet Chinook and wet Cascade from them. We didn't really know what to fucking do with them, so we kind of did a bunch of different treatments. For this particular beer, I think we did 90 pounds. Whoa, jeez. 90 pounds per oak barrel, and let it sit in the oak for somewhere around 4 to 5 months with freshly aged mixed culture saison. And I'm hearing myself again.
That's what it was. It was beauty. Wetness is the essence of beauty.
Is that what acid's like? Sounds kind of fun, actually. So half of it was with aged or wet hops in oak barrels aged for 5 months. The other half was we had fresh fermented, I think it was DuPont back then, and we recirculated it through maybe 300-400 pounds of wet hops in our torpedo, and then we sent it to oak. So one was long contact time on the vegetal matter, one was not, and together
And they're both in this beer.
They're both in this beer, yeah. So I think if I recall, the one that we recirced had a little bit less hop character, but it wasn't as gross cabbagey kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that sat on the hops for a long time did develop a little bit of that vegetal cabbage thing that people worry about, but there was a shit ton of cool bubble gum kind of stuff going on too.
Yeah.
What was a long time? It sat on there for a long time, meaning
4 to 6 months.
Okay.
I want to say at least.
Yeah, I think this beer is really cool. It showcases a lot of really intriguing aromas. I should, Tommy said we got the wet hops and didn't know what to do with them. I would push back on that because we just copied exactly what East of Eden did.
Oh yes,
essentially.
Thank you, Andrew.
Because we had that beer on Sour Hour, and it was so good. And it had come up in the back. Hey, should we get wet hops this year? I was like, yes, let's make the East of Eden beer. And then we just asked them how they made it, and then we did this, which was it was different for sure. And I think we got it from a different place, but
it's the same place.
It's a different place, so different part of the farm. So, yeah, cool.
Party Wave Dave from Alvarado Street Brewery.
Cool. Anything else on Flower, guys?
I think it has a really nice bread expression as well compared
agree.
to some of our other brands.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mixed culture comes through in it as well, kind of preemptively before the kind of wet hop character that you get.
Speak closer.
In the finish.
There you go.
The mixed culture is apparent preemptively.
He meant your words should be closer together. Less.
Speak closer.
Pauses in between your words. All right.
All right.
You're good. All right.
Okay.
Another question, maybe?
Sure.
You go. You or me? I have a list here.
Yeah, you go.
All right. I don't remember. This one's going to Rob because he did so well last time. I don't remember if you inoculate the yeast and bugs at the same time. I'm wondering if you would modify the wort pH before inoculating non-Saccharomyces bugs. Thanks. From Johann Renner Ruley.
That's an interesting question. I mean, if you think about our process, we kind of stick to a clean primary with different saison Saccharomyces strains. Put it to barrel and kind of look for our acidity at that point. I mean, I don't think we're adjusting. We don't control our own hot side, and we're not adjusting pH based on certain brews. I mean, our pH stays the same for our golden base, which is basically what we bring in to, adjust kind of in our own in-house through our mixed fermentation. But that kind of stuff happens at barreling. Everything basically in primary is going to be, mostly clean at this point. Sometimes, we will introduce bread or different organisms if we think are necessary, but I would say most of that's happening at a later date once attenuation has reached a certain level, and we're basically going to barrels.
Yep, I think that's right. We do a lot of Saccharomyces only in primary fermentation. No wort pH adjustment. He's asking if we did, do what he calls non-Saccharomyces bugs. I think colloquially at the Rare Barrel, bugs aren't really we don't refer to that necessarily as yeast. I don't know what you guys think, but that to me, that kind of, I think of bacteria more than Brett. So we don't do any pH adjustments, and Rob's right. When it's usually seeing these kind of cultures, it's when it hits a barrel. So then it's down to regular beer post primary fermentation pH. So somewhere in the 4 to 4.5 range. Any other thoughts on that? Nope. Good.
Here's a question from Tony Menzel. Tony says, should I be worried about adding pureed fruit, as in I just cut up this fruit and pureed it in my blender? Should I be worried about adding that to my mixed culture beer? He said it's got sac, Brett, PDO, lacto, etc. The possibility that it might add too much oxygen.
That's a Tommy question.
No, we puree the shit out of all of our fruit before we use it. I think that's the best way to get the extraction you want from the fruit, especially at the volume that we buy it at. We want to make sure we maximize the amount of flavor we get from it. So pureeing seems like the best way to increase your surface area ratio or whatever.
And oxygen is a non-issue.
It's going to go through re-fermentation anyway, so oxygen is not a problem.
Yeah, but we pump in with, I'm blanking on the name of the pump.
Yeah, we have a positive displacement pump. Yeah, that does mitigate a little bit of the oxygen ingress, I guess. When we're whipping it around with a stick blender, you're going to get a shit ton of oxygenation from that, though. We're generally pitching 5% fresh beer or krausening our fruit re-fermentations as well. So that's generally going to eat up all the oxygen issues that you might have to be dealing with.
Yep. Any other thoughts? No. Good. You guys are doing great.
Here's a question from Ray Patton. What, if any, methods would you recommend for achieving low levels of earthy funk? He says, for example, Hill Farmstead seems to have mastered this. I would assume that a completed clean fermentation followed by a funky Brett strain to chew through the very minimal residual sugars. But is there any other way to rein in your Brett without letting it run wild?
Yeah, Miller, you want to take this one?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. Yeah. You want to keep going?
Me?
Yeah.
It would be funny if she had a brilliant answer for this question. Mm-hmm. That's the social media one. She's like, yeah, I don't know.
Like the Adam Sandler from what's the movie where he answers?
The first movie he ever did,
Madison.
Billy Madison. Yes,
yeah, that'd be good. Rachel, you want to take this one?
No.
Cool. You have to pay for all of your beer.
She's just going to text.
Your beer's on the separate tab, and you're paying for it.
That's right. You could just text Jean, your old homie Jean Van Loin, and see if he wants to answer it.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you make Brett?
That's the thing. I think it's just a house culture thing, right? Whatever develops in your like Hill Farmstead beer is very distinct because the cultures that exist in that brewery are unique to that place, and each brewery you can tell oh, this tastes like that comes from that place. I think that they've managed to like cultivate sort of house culture that is unique. But in terms, I guess you could propagate from like those dregs and sort of like make it at home. But I don't know exactly like how you would replicate that otherwise.
I mean, that makes sense. If you like Hill Farmstead's vibe, help propagating from Hill Farmstead dregs. Yeah?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what he's asking is basically if you're trying to get a tropical fruit bread expression, then just pick the bread strains that give you tropical fruit bread expression. I mean, not every bread is going to give you the weird horse blanket thing that people associate with bread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Hill Farmstead might have a killer wine yeast in their culture, in their mixed culture, in their bottles. So, not sure if that's going to work out, but if you find another brewery with beer that you like, that'll work. But I think he was asking for earthy or not for not earthy.
He was looking for low levels of earthy funk, and he also wanted, like any tips on, reining in Brett without letting it run wild.
I think we've seen like the other problem where our beers don't get that Brett forward. But then there's other breweries, maybe towards Rachel's point, there's other breweries that might have that more of that problem where it's too Brett forward. Blending can always come into that, and blending can be blending yeast and bacteria on the front end when you're inoculating or primary fermenting, or blending the beer after the fact. Rob, you have something else on that?
No, yeah, I was going to disagree with that kind of statement. It kind of depends on at what point you're adding your Brett addition and, what you're giving it to work with, and how much sugar you're going to give the bread to express itself. So, it's at what point do you want that bread to start that process is up to the brewer.
Okay, cool. How are we on time, Scott?
We're doing all right. Let's do one more before we do a show break here.
Cool.
Let's do J.M. Hammond's question. I need advice about doing Solera projects in a barrel. And is there any advice on when to repitch with the original yeast and bacteria blend?
Wait, he's doing a Solera, but he's going to repitch? Can you reread the question?
I need advice about doing Solera projects in a barrel. And is there any advice on when to repitch with the original yeast and bacteria blend?
So I'm a little confused because the point of the Solera is that the original yeast and bacteria blend is always in there.
Right.
So I'm going to try and meet him a little more than halfway on this and think that he's talking about like he's starting with like a lab pitch, and at some point he wants to like restart with that. Let's say he views each Solera refill as like a new generation of that, and he's going to want to, repitch it at Gen 4 or 5 or something. That's just a random example. Once you see it start to increase in acidity and the gravity finishes higher, or you just don't like the flavor as much, that's probably a good time. It's a good thing to bottle those beers along the way. You can always grow up from whatever, refill number, or let's just call it a generation along the way. So, you fill the barrel first and you like that, then you do a Solera refill, and then that's number 2, and you like that. You like number 3, and then maybe 4 or 5 start to get away from you. So I would just prop up from your bottles from number 1 or 2 or whatever you like the best, and then reuse that. Does that sound like a good answer, you guys? You guys need to slam some like Underberg shots.
Where's the Pliny?
I'm working way too hard.
Not getting sour enough.
Hold on, get the mic.
Yeah, Mike, please.
It's getting too sour, so you want to start over and then kind of back off the acidity. Really clean out your. Say, if you're Solera, I mean, you're basically, I would assume, in a kind of a fooder environment. So you're in a larger volume than you normally would be. At what point do you start over and reset that culture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can use less of the culture also, or less. You can do less in a Solera, so leave behind less liquid and add more fresh liquid if you want it to be less sour. So just some general suggestions.
All right.
Cool. So, coffee shots.
Yes.
And
caffeine and Pliny. Caffeine and Pliny.
All right. Thanks to me and Scott, the people who showed up for show.
Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome.
I said a lot of words this time.
You did
Tommy
good.
did. Tommy brought
you
it.
did well. Thanks to Bevo.
Thanks, Bevo.
Well, there. Big thanks to Miller. Yeah. Number 1 overall.
I don't know.
No?
She has no idea.
Sponsors, listeners, thank you. Until next time, stay sour.
The Sour Hour is not for the faint of heart. So exercise some damn discretion, would you please? Sheesh. And now, here's the Sour Hour with Jay Goodwin.
It's that time. We're back. Episode 2 with the Rare Barrel here on the Sour Hour. Also here with Scott. Hey, Scott.
What's up?
And the downtown Concord Brewing Network Studios.
Studios.
See,
You don't even have the beer excuse today.
no, just how I speak. Yeah.
You talk good, kind of.
Oh, yeah. Bevo's with us, not currently, but
She's
here.
She's busting her butt back there trying to clean up the office, which is a freaking mess.
Yeah. Kevin.
Yeah, God, Kevin and Eric, they're such slobs.
That's all I got on that. Yeah, so we have Rare Barrel in studio. We're drinking some beers, getting to some questions, and having a good time.
You know, on the topic of dirty or clean offices, it is kind of funny. You know, when we were when I was there, less than a week ago, we went back into the office at the Rare Barrel to drop some of our stuff off, our personal effects, and it's relatively clean back there. But the hilarious part is, I went into the conference room to put my stuff down, and sitting on the floor, sort of like leaning up against the wall, is a painting that I did years ago for you and Alex, as a sort of gesture of goodwill. And and Jay, I was like, oh, this is a nice home for this painting you found here, Goodwin. And he sort of looked around at the
Completely
400 square feet of blank white walls and went, what do you want, man? We don't got any space for it.
Yeah, we
So thanks for that.
recently moved everything in that conference room, but as I was telling you, I think I'm just going to take it home. I mean, because it really doesn't have much to do with the Rare Barrel, except for Alex and I went to Santa Barbara,
Right.
so it's like we'll appreciate it more.
Exactly.
Alex has full walls. I could use some art.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Alex has some like psychedelic-y, black lighty stuff up. As
Yeah,
I,
you
as
wouldn't
I
really,
recall.
you wouldn't expect it if you knew him. All right, let's see. Don't call us. You can email us, Scott at thebrewingnetwork.com, Jay at thebrewingnetwork.com. You can watch us live, which some people are, I know for sure. Right, Miller?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Watch us, thebrewingnetwork.com/TV. Make sure you're looking. Are you looking at the right camera? Okay. You can listen live. The Brewing Network app. Just search BM Mobile wherever you do that kind of thing. Subscribe and leave feedback on the Apple Podcast app, on Stitcher, maybe on Spotify. Who knows? And yeah, leave some reviews so we can read them at this time next time.
Yes, reviews are
But
huge.
we're all caught up.
It's a good way to support the show, and just click a couple buttons, show us you appreciate us. Goes a long way.
Yeah, and we have another Mellow Mink beer here open. Miller, tell us about this one. What do you think?
So this one is quite delicious. It is orangish in color.
Mhm.
It has a
She's sipping it.
strong taste.
Nice.
But it's easy to drink.
Okay, good.
Boom.
Good job. Killing it.
This is a quick note for you, Matt. Dr. Lambic, you do not need to pay for that endorsement. That's on the house, brother. Because we appreciate you.
But what you do have to pay for is this. The questions you're about to hear, and all the questions on, what is this show called? The Sour Hour, are brought to you by Dr. Lambic.
Oh,
and his,
there you go. Yeah, well, I'm just wanting, Matt, you do have to pay for that. Send the check to Bevo.
That's what I said.
Yeah, see, I'm agreeing with you.
Yes. You're stepping all over it now. You're suffocating me. And his
I'm not
team
trying
at Sour
to.
Beer.
I'm not trying. I'm sorry.
And his team at sourbeerblog.com. Check out the articles on Sour Beer Blog for a great written resource devoted to teaching you how to brew and blend sour beer at home. And now, the Sour Beer Blog crew has opened up a brewery and tap room in central Pennsylvania, Mechanicsburg. You know where that is, Rachel?
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. Melomink Brewing.
Mechanics?
Mechanics, for sure. Yeah. Steeler country out there, I think. Yeah.
That's my dad's favorite team. Don't boo them.
Wow. I think we finally...
Giving you the perfect opportunity to say it. Say what you need to say.
Go Birds.
There you go.
We finally elicited some energy from these. Football. That's what we needed to bring up.
Check them out, Melomink Brewing at melomink.com. Yeah, I've also challenged each person to be ready with a question of their own, and I'm just going to call on them at random intervals.
Here's a real question in the meantime from Keith from Where Daka Brewing Company. He says, Jay, on the recent episode with Reuben's Brews, that was episode 100 and 101, I believe, you spoke about your stainless steel tote that you use for Spawn beer. Do you have a supplier for that, or did you get that made custom? I know of the units that Fooder Crafters makes. I'm just kind of wondering where yours came from and what it looks like.
Yeah, it's not ideal for spontaneous fermentations. That's a little bit of it's not its primary function. But we got ours from Custom Metal Craft. So you can just Google them. But there's probably about 6 to 10 different companies that make almost essentially the same thing. They're called stainless steel IBCs.
And so it was not custom. It was something they made.
Despite the name, it was the standard issue tote from Custom Metal Craft. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's what it is. I wouldn't recommend them for spontaneous fermentation.
All right.
Next.
Next. Thanks for the question, Keith. So maybe we should start now with on the
No,
the
I'm going
spot
to do
stuff.
it. No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
All right. You have some from your list here?
Yeah, I'm running out though. I have a few.
I have a few more too.
We should have grabbed a blurred SB, so I'll do this one instead.
I was really hoping for that question, Jay.
This is a Brandon special right here. Can you acidulate your own malt for sours? What do you think?
That's a great question. I do not know, but I would have to guess you could. You would probably soak it, start kind of a fermentation because there is natural bacteria and yeast on the malt itself, and malt it. But I don't think it would be the same kind of malt. So if you started with Pilsner malt and try to acidulate it, and then you try to roast it, it's probably not going to be Pilsner malt anymore.
Or kiln it.
Yeah. Or kiln it. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I would like spray sour beer on malt and leave it there for 30 minutes and then heat it up so it dies. But I don't know if that would work at all.
Yeah, I don't know.
have
I don't
no
know.
idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how they make acidulated malt.
Yeah.
So
maybe contact Admiral Malt, our local malt supplier from Alameda. Alameda.
Rachel, you look like you have something to say on that.
I don't think you should acidulate your own malt. Because, like, malt, before it's kilned, is a live product, right? And so you could mess up all the work that people put into actually creating that product.
Yeah, it's just like home brewing. Don't brew your own beer. Don't mess up what we're doing.
It's more like don't treat your own water for, like, bugs, you know? Like, there are certain steps that, like, maybe you should just leave to people who know how to do it.
Cool.
So don't treat your own water.
You're headed right to your own podcast, Rachel.
I don't know.
You'll never be like an improv genius. It's like there's no yes and there. It's like no, that would never happen.
Don't bother.
That's an impossible scenario. Let's end this.
Next.
All right, Miller. Let's have your question.
My question?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to
Talk it. No.
No.
It's just
It's
on
all-
demand.
that's right.
At my discretion.
Is it my question to Tommy?
Stop delaying. You're just buying time.
Is it my question to Tommy or is it
Yes.
to Rob?
It's your question to Tom.
Well, I have two.
You can have this one. We'll see how it goes.
Start with one.
Okay. My first question goes to Tommy. It's very important, and it really...
She didn't think of a question.
No. It really talks to who you are as a person. Are you Biggie or are you Tupac?
And why?
Why?
And why?
Oh, well, I grew up in California, so the only answer I can give is Biggie. That wasn't that bad. He said it was going to be pretty shitty, but no, that's a decent... That's an okay question.
I like it.
But yeah, I do like Biggie better. Sorry, Tupac. R.I.P. Never forget.
So do I.
Yeah, so do I actually. Yeah. Tough room.
Rob's low to the soil.
All right.
When it comes to sex, I'm similar to the thriller in Manila.
We're in violation here, Scott. If we don't do it for that many seconds, can they get us on it?
I think no.
Okay.
Bevo was nodding feverishly.
Yes.
Okay, I'll cut it out.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, and we're back.
And we're back.
Yeah. I have a question here, Scott.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yes.
This guy writes, Matt Frykowski writes, I have a quick question, but it's actually the longest one on the list. I have a bunch of carboys in the basement, aging sours, but it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit down there. Will that cause any problems? Is there anything I should watch out for or expect later, like too much sourness or off flavors from sitting in 80F too long? I have a fermentation chamber, but it only fits one carboy at a time, so all the others sit at room temp, but that's hot AF right now. Thanks, TRB.
Well, I think one problem he's going to run into is that his parents are going to want their basement back at a certain point, right?
No, that's fine.
That's okay?
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine. Thoughts on that, you guys?
80 degrees basement. That's hot. Isn't that hot for a basement?
Pretty hot for a basement. Basements are usually a little cooler. Good place to do things.
So, yeah, all right. So, but what problems at 80 are you going to start experiencing?
Greg.
I have a very succinct answer for you.
Yeah.
Yes, you will experience some problems.
Such as?
I can't.
He says succinct. Scott.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. Brandon, do you want to elaborate on that?
No, I'm going to pass this
All right,
on to Rachel.
You guys are doing great. Half of both these jars should be cut.
It's going to be the sour 26 minutes.
Yeah.
It depends on the fermentation profile of whatever you've pitched, right? And
Please
then
elaborate.
I am elaborating. What? I mean, you might get like sort of fruity ester development with at high temperatures. It might just stress out your yeast enough that you get sort of flavor development that you don't want. I don't really know why you're fermenting in a basement if you care much about
These aging
carboys.
sours in a basement.
You can move them.
Good
I'll
job.
jump
Yeah.
in here, but no, I mean, I think
This is Bevo's favorite show.
I think if you're trying to sour your wort or your fermentation, 80 to 100 degrees is not uncommon for these microbes to be basically flourishing. We propagate our yeast, in the 25 to 30 C range, and so I mean, especially if it's a Brit, it can handle that warmer temperature. It will flourish, and as same as lactobacillus is actually preferred temperatures closer to 100 degrees. So I mean that's not going to affect us. I mean that's going to only increase your souring, basically your rate of souring. In a summer month, say if you're closer to 30 C, 35, you're going to be souring faster in that time with lacto.
So with lacto increased souring or increased quicker souring, but it doesn't. There's no like off flavors that higher temperature will. Like where would off flavors start being produced? 105, or is that, what I'm saying?
From,
What's the cap?
From bacteria?
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to say because that kind of depends on the colony and whatnot. I mean, I would say well over 100 degrees because at 100, that's when they're at their peak, and they're in their own element. So, I mean, I would say above 120 degrees, you'd probably be worried about that.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that high.
10 degrees.
I think you're going to get more acetic acid production at higher temperatures. So maybe it's more of like an exponential scale. That might be what Rob's getting at, but I mean, I think you'll see more acetic acid production in a beer that's sort of 80 rather than 60. That's, if the same two beers, same two mixed cultures. So yeah, I would worry about things getting too sour too fast, getting acetic acid instead of just lactic acid, getting, maybe no more to Rachel's point, if there's a lot of fermentation left to do, you can get some fusel alcohols at higher temperatures. So that's just beer that tastes boozy. It's not really what you want to see in beer. So those are some of the things to watch out for. All right, cool. Is it time for break one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I'm just glancing through this quickly because I want to. I really want to focus most of the rest of the show on the rest of the beers you brought on Rare Barrel beers and discussing
we'll grab
those.
a couple during the break.
So and I think we're good on most of these. Oh, here, let's do this one quickly before we go to break.
Okay.
If some thoughts on flavor descriptors from Zachary. He says some of the better flavor descriptors you've heard for mixed fermentation, specifically related to Brett. Everyone's heard horse blanket, barnyard, earth, etc. And you guys are especially sort of in the business of coming up with new ways to describe flavors. Mm-hmm. Anything coming to mind?
Miller.
I don't really know.
On which beer though?
Any beers?
Any beer, yeah. Just
I
in
would
general.
describe Brett. Funk. Like that.
The funk one?
Sure. Yeah.
Just, Brett.
It's funky.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get a break.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's good.
No, if you guys have any, other ones besides that, we'll do that after the break. Tease.
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back on the Sour Hour.
Yo, I create off drum drops and 808 black tops. Grab the mic so you don't react. The double X polo shirt with the hat to match. In fact, we verbally vibrate your track. Then crush your confidence like plastic condiments. Build you up to break you down like forgotten monuments. The question is this, will they return with the hot shit or keep it on the low?
Yeah, and for you confused bastards, tune up the blues masters. Quick to grip the mic, cruise fast and sound clash. At critical mass, pitiful blast, they've been deflected. Hypodermic vocals I flash, get you infected.
I don't sip on brew, so this bud's for you. Speak when spoken to whenever you come through. My vibes feel you, and turn on your revenue. You rhyme prostitute for little or no loot. Cause a lot of these kids think that commercial is rock and fly suits and jewelry. But we can rock shows with no rehearsal with the rebels of rhythm and you. Yeah, cause I'm nice, smooth, hard as a bone. Since I pick up the microphone, I'm hotter than brimstone. The razor sharp, crossbow accurate, and drop the multi-verbal milligram supplement. Plus invent theological word advance. Been too legit to quit before the hammer pans. The heritage, the pen converts words to some and stay blacker than the New York Harlem Renaissance.
No call, we paint a darker picture in your sector. Perfect verbal architecture, sparking lectures, lyrics infectious. Fuck your Lexus. If you ain't giving God the praise, then it's useless. Like when MCs try to make hits and them shits flop. Running races like they was Penelope pit stop. Envelop the hits rock bottom. The dish jock got him souped up, but his rhyme is beating his loops up.
Like da-da, like da-da, ba-dee-da-dee-da-da, ba-da-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-da-da. I can see clearly now, top of the pile with my style. Check the profile, it shifts like sundials. Crisp like young smiles, we rip and run wild. Intent to rock crowds, some bite like rock wilds. Your game is disconnected, misdirected, disrespected. When we come in, expect some next shit. The J-U-R-A, classical forte. Get low down and dirty like the ill Moray. My heart pump the rhythm of the militant street life. Soldier with composure up under the street light. The pro style, prototype, professional media light shine bright. Now kill all the bullshit, cheap talk and lip service. Jealousy and envy and undertone curses in your verses serve the purpose of a nigga living nervous, unsure and uncertain, but about the short circuit. Like da-da, ba-dee-da-dee-da-da, ba-da-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-da-da. Like da-da, like da-da, ba-dee-da-dee-da-da, ba-da-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-da-da. Hey yo, my gift of gab should be sold in bags. Boost up the price tag, make a whack rapper mad. Rely on my right side, securing I take tight, takes the tangibles to your mandible and clavicle.
Easily, tuna be cleverly swelling my treasury. Vocal pedigree for you critics who try to measure me. But leisurely about to run you down my resume. Had a bundle of struggle from birth to my present day.
Your love don't compute, perhaps you need a boost. A magical flute, some nose candy to two. Before you get loose, express and tap the roof. You claim you got the juice, but you lame and out the loop. So I associated myself with fossilized figures. Crack the summer sizzler, hit the real live niggas. My influences, gunshots and trauma units. Street trends with material world friends. Like da-da, Like da da, ba dee da dee da da, ba da da dee 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 da dee da da. Like da da, ba dee da dee da da, ba da da dee 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 da dee da da.
When it comes to sex, I'm similar to the Thriller in Manila. Honeys call me bigger, the condom filler. Whether it's stiff tongue or stiff dick, Biggie squeeze it to make shit fit. Now check this shit, I got the pack of Rough Riders in the back with the Pathfinder. You know the epilogue by James Bond. Smith, I get swift with the lyrical gift. Hit you with the dick, make your kidney shift. Here we go, but I'm not domino. I got the funk flow to make your drawers drop slow. So recognize the dick size in these organized jeans. I'm in 13s, know what I mean? I fuck around and hit you with the Hennessy dick. Mess around and go blind, don't get to see shit. The next batter, here to shatter, your batter, it doesn't matter. Skinny or fat or light skinned or black, baby, I drop these. Beneath what my means, screaming, I poppy. I love it when they call me Big Pop, but I only smoke blunts if they roll prop. But look, I got you caught up with the drunk flow. Fuck taekwondo, I told a fofo. For niggas getting mad cause they bitch chose me. A big black motherfucker with G. You see, all I do is separate the game from the truth. Big bang boots from the Bronx to Bolivia. Getting physical like Olivia Newt. Tricks up my click pick all day with no trivia. So give me a bankroll and a bag of weed. I'm guaranteed to fuck until her nose bleed. Even if your new man's a certified Mac, you get that H down in ya. You want that old thing back?
Oh, Biggie, give me one more time. Oh, Biggie, give me one more time. Oh, Biggie, give me one more time. Oh, Biggie, give me one more time.
Is my mind playing tricks like Scarface and Bushwick? Willie D having nightmares of girls killing me. She mad because what we had didn't last. I'm glad because her cousin let me hit the ass. Fuck the past, let's dwell on the 500 SL, the E and J and ginger ale. The way my pockets swell to the rim with Benjamins. Another hunt's in the crib, please send her in. I fuck non-stop, lick my lips a lot. Used to lick the clits a lot, but licking clits had to stop. Cause y'all don't know how to act when the tongue go down below. Keep the funk flow, really know. I got the cleanest, meanest, keenest. You never seen this, stroke of genius. So take off your Tim boots and your bodysuit. I mean the spandex, and hit my man next. Sex get rougher when it come to the nut buster. Pussy crusher, black nasty motherfucker. I don't chase them, I replace them. And if I'm caressing them, I'm undressing them. Fuck what you heard, who's the best in New York? Fulfilling fantasies without that nigga Mr. Rock. One tattoo, I got you wrapped around my dick. And when I nut, I got the split. Shit, back shots is my position. I got you wishing for an intermission. Fuck the kissing, licking down to your belly button. I ain't frontin'. They don't call me big for nothing. All of a sudden,
Oh, Biggie, give me one more time. Oh, Biggie, give me one more time. Oh, Biggie, give me one more time. Oh, Biggie, give me one more time.
Hey, this is Jeremy from Brewery to Rue. You're listening to the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network.
All right, we're back. Sour Hour on the Brewing Network, as Jeremy just said. Got another beer open right now. It's called Blurred SB. It's the dry hopped version of this. And Tommy, Brandon,
That's my
This is Brandon's question.
Yeah, that's my question.
Can you talk about dry hopping fruited sours, process, ratios, combos, etc.? Thanks, TRB team. From Jordan Folks.
Damn it. You know me too well. Okay, so for our dry...
the overall process, and then Tommy will give all the numbers.
Sounds great to me. I don't know the number part, so that's great. So for the process part, what we do typically for our dry hopped fruited sours, we do our fruited sour blend separately from the dry hop blend. The dry hop blend, we dry hop pretty excessively for the final volume. So, I guess just for example, if you're dry hopping at 2 pounds per barrel, we are dry hop. I mean, that would be the final number. So, if the blend itself, we have 4 barrels, we would have 8 pounds per barrel, and then we blend back the fruited portion, so it comes out to 2 pounds per barrel.
So let's say it's half fruited sour and half dry hopped, not too sour beer. You want to hop for the final blend, so essentially you're adding twice as many hops to the non-sour version, knowing that it's going to be blended together later.
Yeah, exactly like what Jay said.
Cool.
Oh, that's cool, Jay. You still know some stuff about your brewery.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Slow clap.
Sick bird, Scott.
It's really more.
They're alive.
It's more of a compliment to you guys than it is. No, you're right. It's a burn on Jay.
Yeah. So, Tommy, since I don't know, tell us about how this beer was made in particular, the Blurred SB with Strata.
Jay is dying to know.
The Blurred SB for this particular brand was, I think, second use Sauvignon Blanc grapes. The first time we did this particular beer, we did our typical beer wine hybrid numbers, so something like a 51-49% split between fermentable sugars between Sauvignon Blanc grapes as well as sugar from malt or whatever you call it, wort. Yeah, that's what it is. So like Brandon was saying, we treat it like two separate beers essentially. So the final product is essentially like maybe 2/3 of the actual volume we're intending for. So we keep the fruited portion separate, and then we dry hop a non-acidic, essentially, 4.5 plus pH portion for the dry hop. Again, as Brandon was saying, we dry hop that portion in the beer's entirety. So all the dry hops for the entire beer's volume go into half the beer, which, I don't know, it fucking kills our yield, but at the same time it gets us the expression that we want. And then we blend that with our sour fruited portion. Sorry, that might have been a little more complicated than I wanted it to be.
You got it.
So yeah, is there any complications you can run into by like over hopping the portion that needs to be overly hoppy?
The main complication we run into is yield, honestly, because like I said, we put the entire beer's volume of hops into half the beer.
Right.
So instead of losing like the typical 20% that you're typically going to see with a dry hopping process, we lose 33 to 40%. But it's really the only way that we've found to find. It's the only way that we've gotten dry hop characteristic in a sour beer without it being gross and vegetal and pickly.
Did you have some? Give me an example of a failed technique.
Where we make a mixed culture beer, dry hop it like normal, and then package it, especially forced carbonation. The dill characteristic is pretty off-putting for me personally, but some people might be okay with it. But essentially, imagine eating all the pickles out of like a jar of Clausen pickles. What's a brand?
Sure.
Clausen?
Perfect.
Classic. Perfect. And then
I like
all the pickles
Clausen.
are gone. All you have is juice left, and that would be what the beer smelled and tasted.
Pickleback.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like a beach ball at a pickleback concert.
Like you to say sorry.
Yeah. What about some? Just asking about combos. What hops do you guys think go well in sour fruited beers? Rachel.
Don't do it. Don't bother.
Is that your Rachel?
Yeah, that was my Rachel.
I'm the pumpkin spice latte girl of hops, so I love a good Mosaic Nelson, Citra,
Meaning
whatever.
you're basic.
Yeah.
Galaxy
That's,
Citra. Ooh.
no, that's what she said. Bevo. That was just a translation of what she was saying.
Yeah, he wasn't calling your name.
Those hops don't taste like pumpkin spice latte.
They should.
But they're the basic.
I know.
hops.
I understand. I'm not.
So Bevo, let me really explain this a little bit more.
To me a little harder.
Yeah. Sorry. Were you done talking, Rachel? I just mansplayed and interrupted at the same time.
Unbelievable. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah,
what did you
you're
say? You said Nelson and
Mosaic.
and Mosaic. Okay, you got another combo?
Love Nelson mostly. Citra, anything really. Lemon drop. Ooh.
We're not using lemon drop.
Why not? Why not?
It's something she's been pushing for a year at this point.
Why are you adverse to it?
At this point, just because she really wants to use it.
Fair
We
enough.
bought them like the second month. Was it like second or third month? I think it was.
They're in the cold box. We're just not going to use them.
Well, if Rachel wins the fantasy football league, we'll have to.
Oh, yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Not happening.
Yeah. Didn't come close last
You
time.
forgot Sriracha Ace.
We've used Sriracha Ace because you wanted to use it, and that was a
thank you.
huge mistake.
Yeah. Oh, it turned out phenomenal.
Tom,
It had that
everyone's
great
got
Dill
hot-
character.
Everyone's got hot takes. So there's a lot of good ones out there. What don't you want to use?
Fuggle. I don't know. It's a good hop. It just sounds funny. Probably all the noble stuff just wouldn't be quite as expressive as we want it to be.
For fruit.
For the fruit hybrid shit.
great
For
and
this
non-fruit.
blurred SB, it was Strata, which is hard to come by and quite delicious. So hopefully we can get some this September and use it in a future project.
Have you guys tried Saws?
I'm sorry, that doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, there's a lot of saws and other varietals that are like that, but no, it just gets lost in the
It does.
fruit beers.
Hmm.
So there's no reason to add more, in our opinion.
Okay, here's a question that just came in from Tyler, who says, hello, J. Scott Rare Barrel team. I have a 3.2 pH kettle sour that I pitched White Lab San Diego Super Yeast, and it stalled at 5 Plato. The beer started at 12 Plato. What is the best way to restart this stuck fermentation?
Make a new beer.
Okay, well, here, he's like, should I try rehydrating some dry yeast in a 3.6 pH solution and pitch that into the beer?
I mean, I could pass this to Rob, but it's essentially what we're trying to do on a daily basis. Our beer isn't quite as acidic as it used to be, so being at that low a pH is not what we're dealing with anymore. But at the same
how
time,
low was it? I was busy sneezing.
I think it said 3.2.
I thought it was 3.5.
He's 3.2. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go about our typical tempering process where you acclimate the yeast to that environment, it should help push it down to, I don't know, whatever attenuation you're looking for.
There's a difference, though, also between like getting to the correct final gravity and the beer tasting good. You know, it's like just because the numbers are right doesn't mean it's going to taste good. So the fact that your beer stalled out means you didn't have a healthy primary fermentation, and you might be screwed already. So back to Tommy's initial point, you might just want to dump the beer. Not the best, but oh well.
Yeah, you should probably dump it. Sorry.
All right. Thank you, Tyler, for the question. Now we have more. Do we have another one of your? Oh, we have cans, right? Oh
yeah,
no,
we have another bottle.
Oh,
Too.
we have another bottle. Oh, all right. Let's talk about Believe in Nashville.
Let's talk about it. Who wants to talk about Believe in Nashville?
I think
Mila?
Jay does.
No, I'm still struggling from the sneeze.
Tell us, Jay, what's in the water in Nashville? That's from Mike from Temescal. He wants to know what you meant by there's something in the water in Nashville.
Did I say that? I don't think so. Is it? Let's look at the side.
Jay's going to read the description right now.
Hold on.
Now he has to himself.
Yeah, just to myself. All right, so over the past few years, I've been lucky enough to visit my friend and brewer Brandon Jones. I've embraced the funk in Nashville, Tennessee. Each time I visit, I grow more fond of this vibrant city. This is very well written. When Brandon came to visit us in Berkeley, he brought the same vibrant spirit with him to the Rare Barrel. This unique blend is what we came up with during his time here. Jay Goodwin. It's nothing about water.
Nothing about the water, yeah.
I almost, when I posted on Milk the Funk earlier, I was like, "Dear Facebook, please ban Mike from posting any comments on this." So it's just something really stupid because Mike's stupid. Greg, let's get your question while we open this and pour this beer.
Right on. So, Brandon, prior to coming into the studio, you were describing to us in great detail your home brewing processes. and how you've been trying to you do single malts beers while also using some propagated yeast strains. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It's not a question.
Yeah.
I guess it is. Can you tell us about that? The answer is yes.
Could you tell us about that? Question mark.
And would you?
Sounds like a
Could
question.
Yes.
Tell us
I mean,
about
I
this.
could, but do I want to? No, that is something.
Okay, follow-up question. When are you going to do the reverse mohawk?
What was that?
The reverse mohawk? Is that where you shave right down the middle?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
That was
wait,
also
let's-
discussed prior to coming here.
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. The reverse mohawk will happen most likely after Halloween, but there is an ongoing thing where I'm asking Rob to bick his head.
Real mohawk looks great.
Bick your head, and I in
We love the
return
real
will bick.
mohawk on it.
Yeah, I will in return bick my head, and I believe that will start a chain reaction where the rest of
I'll
production.
bick my head.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Tommy.
I will pick my head.
I'm in.
I meant to say mullet. I meant to say we love the real mullet.
That was great. That was great, you guys. Do you want to pour some of this and pass it down, Greg? Tommy, tell us about this beer.
Sure. So for this beer, it was second use Petite Syrah, second use Merlot, second use Tempranillo,
Cab Sav.
Cab Sav. It was three different. It was three different red fruit grape varieties that we used for this particular blend. I think Brandon came and picked probably the three fucking best barrels we had in our warehouse, which is cool for him, but shitty for me because he used all the good stock that we had laying around.
Thank you.
But essentially, this was a 1-to-4 ratio of mixed culture saison with mixed ferment red grape sour beer. The fruit expression is a little bit more mild in this. Definitely a lot of Brett characteristics just from the mixed culture saison as well as the shit that was on the skin of the grapes. Most of what we do is done with whole cluster crushed destemmed shit from Northern California. For this particular beer, I think it turned out fairly well. I mean, I was kind of worried that all of that mixed culture saison would kind of wash away into the grape characteristics, but there's definitely a little bit of fruit character left in this, and it doesn't dominate for sure. It's definitely a background thing to the overall profile of the beer.
It's got a little hue. It's like a golden with a hue. The hue's coming from the grapes.
Yeah, it is. I think there's some Petite Syrah juice in this too that we just held on to for like 2 years or so, just because we had some excess back when we did that project 2 or 3 years ago. It's just been sitting around in a keg, so there's a little bit more of that flavor profile.
Was that to amp up the grape character?
Yes, it was, because like I said, I thought we would wash away everything with all the good barrels that Brandon had picked, but I think it turned out okay.
Let's get some tasting notes with Miller and Greg.
Start this off.
Smells like fruit.
I've got some tasting notes about Moscow's ID.
Oh, wow.
The guy looks like a Russian hitman.
What?
He's got a giant mullet. Everybody needs to
No,
see
it's a
this.
mohawk, not a
It's
mullet.
That's a sweet mullet,
That's a
bro.
mohawk, not a mullet.
Well,
a mullet? I don't think you know what a mullet is, dude.
Okay, you're right. No, I'm sorry. It's a mohawk.
Yeah, It's a reverse thank you. mullet.
It's a slick back mohawk. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a full
Moscow-
mohawk.
Moscow-
As on the topic of mohawks,
This guy's a Russian mobster. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I'll cut that out in post. I can't have that being said on the air.
That is all.
Back to us. Thanks, Rob. Great. Miller?
Yeah, the grape character comes through nicely. It's not overly powdery. It's pretty well balanced between the mixed culture fermentation. Super dry, slightly tart, super enjoyable.
That was really good, Greg.
Miller?
Good job, guys.
Well, right off the bat, I will say has a golden hue from the grapes.
Sounds familiar.
Or red. Yeah.
To everyone else in the world, it is a orange.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's like a rose orange.
First sip.
Like a beautiful rose orange. Blondes, dye your hair this color.
She's
That's
carefully
nice.
tasting it. Yeah, you like
That's
it?
nice. Just for the record. Miller claimed, "Just put a beer in front of me, and then I'll be able to crush this."
That's when I'll really, you haven't seen me at my most descriptive until I have a sample of a beer.
Nice.
Okay, wait. I will say then after like second sip of this, like straight, this is fucking delicious.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I didn't mean
Censor
to-
that. Censor that.
No, it's an explicit show.
No, this is really, really good. Great. To you guys. This is
All right.
really
Wow.
good.
No, thank
I
you.
didn't mean-
Censor
That's an
that.
adjective.
Censor.
Censor. Now you're a drop. That's pretty good.
Where
Can
was
we get
that?
that one more time? All right.
wow.
Yeah.
Where was her?
It was,
Like,
you got it.
straight, this is fucking delicious.
That's what it was.
Oh, yeah, I like the censored.
Oh, you guys have censored. I'm so sorry.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean-
Censor
That's an
that.
adjective.
Censor.
Oh, no.
That's an adjective. That was
Who
one.
was that?
It really is good. This is
Good. Break time. I could just use one.
Yeah, we need to do like one more question, then we can take a break.
All right. Tease or answer?
No,
No, it's time for a break.
It is?
Yeah, definitely.
Fine. Okay, fine. Take a
I'm
break.
keeping track.
All right.
All right. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with one more segment
Yeah, one more.
on the Sour Hour.
Driving a Jeep, but he ain't in the army. Gets all the cigarette money from his mommy. Dressed like a rootin' tootin' Texas cowboy. But this Lone Ranger's never seen a horse. He wanna be Americano, Americano, Americano. showgirls, smoking camels, whiskey and soda. Now he's never going back. He's cruising streets of gold, dressed in designer clothes. Brother, if you're too slow, we've got a drink. All you wind up in the drink, wanna be Americano, Americano, Americano. Gotta buy a diamond ring, 'cause that's his baby's favorite thing. Okay, alright, yeah, man, wanna be American, wanna be American. He's in the land where anything can happen. Reach for the stars, grab that golden ring. Just remember he's Americano. Well, watch it, pal, 'cause he'll take everything. You wanna be Americano, Americano, Americano. He wants to drive a Cadillac. One now he's chasing showgirls, smoking camels, whiskey and soda. Now he's never going back. He likes that rock and roll. He's playing baseball. Loves Marilyn Monroe. Coca-Cola Joe and a piece of Americano. The Americano, Americano, Americano. Gotta buy a diamond ring, 'cause that's his baby's favorite thing. Okay, alright, yeah, man, wanna be American, wanna be American, wanna be American. Hey!
We're back. It's the Sour Hour. How's the bike doing? It's all right. The Rachel's one. Is it in workable shape?
She's getting there. She's in recovery.
What's her name?
Her name is Bike Mantha.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty good.
Now we're talking bicycle, not motorcycle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You just never know.
Tommy, what's your question?
Are we on right now?
Yes, we are.
So my main question has to deal with Rob's
you're
facial
really
hair.
speaking into the mic.
It's okay. It's okay.
No. For me, it's just like if I had the ability to grow so much hair on my face, I would. So why do you trim so often?
That's a great question.
I mean, just to follow it up, you could like make your chin look however you want it to. but
Sculpt, yeah, you can
choose
sculpt the
not
chin.
to.
That's
What's
so
the
true.
implication
Yeah.
there?
A little confused by the question. Maybe like, a few follow-up questions to clarify.
Yeah, that's allowed.
If you don't mind.
I think Tom.
So what
yeah.
you're saying is you think I trim too often,
right?
and I'm trimming my chin specifically too often.
Right.
How do I manage that, and how do I just kind of take that in it like a day-to-day operate?
No, so I mean, you have the opportunity to make your face look how you want it to, but why does it look like this? Sorry.
Sick burn, Tommy.
It's either the most offensive insult I've ever heard, or it's somewhere like, just a strange sentiment. But my face looks this good because I trim it. People want to know, pretty much a 3 on the beard.
Yeah, the number 3.
I'm a trimming on 3. I'm buzzing my own hair, probably down to a 2. I kind of fade the side in, and you're talking about the lower neck area. I mean, then you're getting into like, interesting areas. I mean, like I'd love to have a girlfriend to kind of clean up the back or something, but I have to do that behind my own head with a single trimmer, and it's an acquired skill. Thank you, Greg. It's acquired, and that's how I look like this. Good, like this. Good all the time.
That was for you, Beef.
All the time, I look great. Brandon, everybody knows.
You almost fell over there.
No. You look great. Yes.
Oh my God.
I did.
Tommy, excellent question, Tommy.
Wait, can I ask my Rob question?
Sure, why not? Yeah, we're on a roll.
Where's the? Give me some beer. Give me some Rare Barrel canned beer. Thank you.
Viewers like what I want.
Go on.
Do the viewers like the beard? What I want to know right now.
Oh.
Go on. Go ask your question.
On to Alex.
All right.
said no. Sorry. I like it.
Right.
Not who I
Rob.
meant to hear.
Rob, I need you to look me in the eyes right now.
Another question.
Another question. It's about hair. It's not about hair.
Again?
I need you to look at me and tell me right now, what is your all-time favorite WWF main match? You don't have an answer. You weren't ready for that.
Main match of all
You don't
time?
have an answer. You can talk about your hair for hours, but you don't have an answer for this.
I'll give him a quick. Can I give him my?
I mean, are we talking WWF?
That's not
or
live. Live.
Would you take a
Bret the Hitman Hart and Yokozuna steel cage
No.
death match?
Hood slam, no, and real wrestling.
Well, you said WWF.
Yeah, WWF. We're talking about hood slam.
Let's take a back pedal, Oakland. Easy on your fireworks. Hood slam is a completely legitimate and ecstatic avenue of wrestling.
I can't believe I haven't had it.
That's true. I've been there. They chant, "This is real."
Holy, I apologize to all those fans.
You guys both need to stop.
That being said,
'cause that's not real.
I'm sorry. If
Probably
they're chanting, "This is real."
would have been. I mean, it's got to be like Hogan versus
Big Show.
Ultimate Warrior.
What?
Austin.
Oh. That's a good one.
Like,
Stone
I mean,
Cold
I'm not.
Steve
I mean, I'm
Austin.
not gonna lie. I see you wearing that Austin tee, the 316, and I want to see you slam 2 beers on your head and slam them down. Like Trey, R.I.P. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Trey.
And I mean Hogan. We're talking about legends. And if you watched Raw, Monday Night Raw, you would have seen the throwback episode about two weeks ago with all the throwback legends that were on the set. So I was watching Raw the other weekend. Guys, I don't even know who they are. They're getting thrown through the LED screens and fired, like lit on fire. These guys, they're going to the ER. It's sad. Look in my eyes and tell me if this is serious. This is real. This is real. This is real, guys. I mean, can you look up Raw? It was only a few weeks ago. They're getting slammed through the LEDs and they're lit on fire. These guys got lifted to the ER. You guys, this is.
Okay. So in my glass right now is.
Does that freaking answer?
Yeah, this is a parking lot party.
Parking lot party, yeah. Sour now a sour
Holy
IPA. Whoa, with Azaka and
I'm just getting
Citra
started.
And Amarillo.
Bob Lazar, the Storm 51.
Can we talk about this beer though, for real though?
This is one of our canned sour IPAs. I'll throw it back to Tommy to tell us about this one.
It's a yeast we
Mostly-
weren't
mostly so
anticipating
you
to
have
use.
that microphone.
But it's essentially a mixed culture of Conan and Sactois. So the idea is Conan gives you the classic English shit that you're looking for with like a London 3 or whatever. Sactois dries out a little further. For what we're doing, we're trying to dry out the beer a little bit more than your typical hazy IPA on the market right now. So instead of like the finishing gravity of like 3-4 Plato for that like residual sweetness, we're looking for something like 1 to 1.5. The main reason is because we're blending in barrel-aged sour stock into this and not pasteurizing this. So we don't really want over-attenuation. It's something we've been working on for, I don't know, like 2-3 years or so since our first Cellar Maker collab, like in 20, what year is it? 2020. No, that's wrong. 2014, something like that. Anyway, so we've been thinking about this for a while, but basically we're just trying to track attenuation over the course of time, and we found that as long as our finishing gravity on the IPA that we blend with the sour aged barrel stock is fairly similar, we don't get too much attenuation. So the main concern that people have with this particular beer style is like you'll blend the two together and then you're going to get like a fucking bottle bomb or whatever. But I mean, we're getting like 0.1 Plato attenuation over the course of every year. So if you put this in your garage at 95 degrees for 5 years, you'll get like 1 volume of CO2, which is more than acceptable. Yeah. Anyway,
keep cold, drink fresh.
Yeah, keep cold, drink fresh. It does evolve over time. Acid changes over time. Brett characteristic changes over time. The hop character isn't as prevalent over time either, but it does morph into more along the lines of, like if you've had any of our dry hop sours before, that kind of flavor profile. So a mixed fermentation profile with Brett and hops.
Yeah, I think somewhere your can releases especially have excelled thus far is that they're neither hoppy nor acidic. Those two things, which are hard to meld really well. And is it attenuation related? Like, what would you chalk that up to?
I think it's
Seems
literally
hard.
overcompensation in all aspects. The first time we made this beer, we did the typical hopping rates of like 3 to 4 pounds per BBL, which is I think closer to the industry standard for dry hopping. For all of our beers now, we're closer to like 8 to 9 pounds per BBL, which Jay hates because it's literally double the costs to make half the beer.
The yield's bad too.
Yeah, the yields are pretty shit. But really, the only way that we can get any sort of hop expression after adding acid barrels is to get that high. So, at the costs of money, we're making flavor, I guess. I don't really know a better way to put it, but
I think you summed up Jay's professional career just now.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how we do it.
Yeah, so most of our stuff is in like the 80-20 split of actual IPA with sour barrel-aged stock. It's worked fairly well for us at this point, but that's kind of a moving target, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, what's your question?
My question to Rachel.
Guys,
Oh.
never. Yeah, of course.
Shit. You just
I was
put me on
ready
the
for
spot.
this.
I know.
I always look at
That
Rob's
was
beard.
so random.
Are you single?
Well, that's not my question to Rachel.
The way you said that, man. Like, you want to ask someone else?
I know. I really want to ask
that's
Rob
not
a
my question for
question
Rachel.
on that whole WWE thing, but okay, Rachel.
Can't believe
So
you guys didn't
you're
prepare.
not a Steelers fan. You're an Eagles fan. Can you sing the
Go Birds.
Eagles? Can you sing the Birds theme song, but not the War of Birds from It's Always Sunny?
I can sing it. Yes, you're right.
Sing it.
That's not a question. That's a demand.
You sing, like, give us like 16
question.
bars.
Are you talking about Fly Eagles Fly?
Yes.
Yes.
Whoa.
It's
Okay.
from the-
Yeah, I do.
You should sing it.
I'm not. Well,
Or
no,
you
no.
could
The question
I'm
was
not talking
it was
about
for
bird.
me,
I'm
it was
not
for
talking
you.
Birds of War.
Let's hear like 5 seconds.
It's like like it plays on the themes of eagles flying and like sort of winning.
When I said
all the
let's
time.
hear some for 5 seconds,
Yeah,
I meant like
I
they
don't
finish
need you to
song.
explain that. I just need
They're
to
on
hear
a
it.
road to victory.
So what's the song like? What does it sound like?
Yeah.
Sing the song. Sing the song.
No, you're going to
I'm
sing
not.
it.
I can't sing.
You,
it.
you,
The
you,
only-
you need some backing.
Do you need a
backing.
chant? I mean, I can start a chant. If you need a chant, I can start one.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
You can play it in the background.
Okay. Okay. I won't help her.
No. Everyone in Philadelphia knows this song.
But you're from Philadelphia, right?
No free.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Cut her mic while you're
All
at it.
right. All right.
That was bad.
I've done karaoke in this company. A blackout Trey was a witness, and so there were no witnesses.
Yeah.
So I'm safe.
Okay.
No,
All
I
right,
I
all right,
witnessed
fair
that.
enough, fair enough.
Did you kill him because you
I
didn't
witnessed
want
it.
any
Okay.
witnesses? or-
R.I.P.
All right. Fair enough.
You
Tell me your
you
favorite
just
beer.
forgot I was there.
I'll have a follow-up question. What's your favorite beer?
Orval.
Good answer.
Why?
That's a good answer. Orval's wonderful.
All right, Rachel, what's your question?
My question is, so I invented this game when I was drunk. It's called Meet Meet Me, which is who would you be, who would you eat as meat, and who would you meet in person?
Can you say that again? Meet?
Meet me.
Meet?
All right, so
Me?
Kid Rock, The Rock, Chris Rock. Go.
So you have to eat someone.
Beat someone.
Wait, yeah.
Why are you beating somebody?
You're not beating anybody, Craig.
Of course not.
You have to eat someone, be
They all sound
someone,
pretty
and
meaty.
meet someone, but as the person that you are, that you become.
Okay, and it's Kid Rock, The Rock, and
Wait,
who?
that you become?
Chris Rock.
What-
All the rocks.
This keeps
Okay.
changing.
All the
Oh,
rocks.
that's easy. I would meet Chris Rock, be The Rock, and eat Kid Rock.
Whoa.
Ooh.
All the white meat.
I don't think I would eat Kid Rock.
Yeah, why would you
You're
eat
gonna die
Kid Rock?
shortly thereafter.
Because I don't care about Kid Rock.
Yeah, but you would get like Hep C, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
Is there a
fine.
consequence to eating a person that you choose?
The Rock also for a
I'm
little
sure
bit,
we
you
eat
know?
worse shit, right? Than Chris Rock.
I don't know.
Wouldn't you want to be The Rock though? Like,
Yeah, of course.
besides
Well, yeah.
everything else, one, he's
Who would
The
not
Rock
wanna
from
be The Rock?
WWF. Do you know
Dwayne
his
Johnson?
titles?
Yeah.
and
No,
all
that's
I
no
know
good.
who Dwayne Johnson.
You wouldn't want to be the
No,
Rock.
WWE.
Rob, no, Rob, stay away
Me.
from the mic.
I
from
also kind of
WWF.
want to eat the rock, though.
Besides the,
So, a lot of meat on those bones.
Entertainment.
A lot of meat on those bones.
Oh, that's not why.
Wow.
he's the world heavyweight champion.
You wouldn't want to be him because you'd have to live in the weight room. Who wants to spend 10 hours a day in the
Do you
gym?
see what he gets
Did
to
you
eat on his
see
cheat
him?
days, though? He eats like 16 pizzas.
Really?
I just
Yes.
watched Predator
You
on
do
the
that.
plane. You know, it's-
The Rock's cheat days.
Okay.
I thought we
Great.
were talking about.
I don't know anything about Kid Rock other than he sings that, I don't know, shit that we play in the brewery.
Oh, the
You know,
werewolf, the
Continue.
werewolf in
Melodrama
London song?
remix or something.
The werewolf in London.
And then Kid Rock, he made that great movie, the one where he like dies and he comes back in like a rich guy's soul,
Chris Rock.
right?
Chris Rock.
That's Chris Rock. Are we talking about different?
You
Rock?
said- you said
No, no.
Kid.
Chris
Rob.
Rock. Well, that's who I'd want to meet.
Rob, what's your question for Greg? Did you already ask it?
My question for Greg or Moscow?
Greg.
Yeah, Greg.
Honestly, I think that what people may not know about Greg is that he's he's a Libra. He's tall and handsome. No, but that he's a veteran, and I just I'd like to know like a little bit more about serving in the military and then coming into the beer industry and kind of like finding your way into this industry and like how that a small.
I'm amazed that you asked that
That's
great
a
question.
great question. Yeah. I mean,
Is that a bad question?
No, that was actually, it was amazing.
He's handsome as shit. I mean, we go to.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Is it
Stop-
fair? Is it
stop
fair
that.
to say you don't see a lot of that those industries overlapping, right?
That is true. There is not a lot of overlap in those two industries, except for while serving, I drank a shit ton of beer, mainly because I was stationed in Germany and I was at 19, so I drank a lot of beer.
Well,
So
that was a fortunate placement.
Definitely. I chose that for that reason. I was like 19. I can go to like Louisiana and not drink beer. I can go to Germany and drink beer. Which one would you choose? So that being the case, for me, it was a pretty easy transition. You know, people always say do what you love, and I happen to have a love for beer. Always have, as long as I've been able to drink it, and here I am in the industry, not only helping make the beer but also helping to drink it. So,
Excellent.
Wow, awesome.
That was good.
Did not know that.
That was
Amazing
great.
tidbit.
Did we get to everyone's question?
I kind of had a second question, but
I don't know if I want to
I
allow
don't know
that.
either. Yeah, I think we're done here.
That was a great
celebrity question, though.
No,
This is a good
'cause that was such a
celebrity
good last question
In
and a great
fact,
last
everyone
answer.
Could like chime in on
Yeah,
this
so
one.
thanks for all the listeners.
Pipe down now.
Thank
Let
you,
Jay speak.
listeners. Thanks to the Rare Barrel staff for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Not sure I
Thank
need
you
that.
very much. Thank you.
Thanks to Bevo. Thanks to Scott.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you.
Thanks to all the sponsors who make this show possible. Until next time, if that actually happens, stay sour.